Hi, my name is Rory Canterbury. I'm going to be your host today on Arch Talk 101, Archery Talk 101. I can't talk today. We're going to get started here, but before we do that, I want to let everybody know how you can watch or listen to the podcast. You can listen to the podcast on Spotify and wherever you get your podcasts at. You can also go out to audible.com and you can search for Arch Talk 101 and you can listen to it there. It's free to listen to there. You don't have to pay for it like you do a lot of the other books and stuff you got to pay for. This is actually free. The other place you can watch the video, so just listen to it, is on my YouTube channel, and I call it Learn to Fix It Yourself because there's all kinds of other stuff there besides archery stuff. There's sometimes how to fix your archery equipment. There's just all kinds of different stuff out there. Go out there and subscribe to that, and you'll see all kinds of different stuff. But probably the best way to do it is to join the Archery Talk 101 Facebook group. I'll have the video up there, as well as if you want to have us to take a look at your a video of your shooting form, and we'll take a look at it. We'll give you pointers if you have a question of your equipment. We have all kinds of people there with all kinds of experiences. Like our guest today has his own shop, so we'll have some good information from him as well. So, Jonathan, welcome to the show. And how about
Thank
if
you,
you
Roy.
introduce yourself?
I'm Jonathan Bolte. I'm the manager of this shop, Silverbirch Archery. Yeah, PSE shooter, competitive shooter, hunter. There's nothing I don't do in archery.
So, what got you started in archery?
So I actually grew up in a hunting family. I was shooting bows and guns at like 3 years old. Um, I kind of got away from archery for a while. Believe it or not, I was actually a professional ballet dancer in New York City for a little bit. Um, and then that stopped, and then I came back to archery.
It's kind of interesting, being a ballet dancer in New York.
Yep.
I bet that was kind of interesting,
It
something
was,
different.
it was fun. Things happened, and I had to stop that career. Um, and then I was kind of just floating along for a while, and then one day my nephew, uh, I was in North Carolina visiting my nephew, and he was like, "Hey, Uncle Jonathan, I just found this bow in the shed. I think I want to learn archery." And I was like, "Hey, yeah, I'll do it with you." And then I got a compound bow and just fell in love with it
Yeah,
all
yeah,
over again.
yeah, all over again. That happens a lot, where you get into archery and then you're out of archery and then get back into it, or some just don't start it until late. I interviewed one lady on here, and then um, next thing you know is I'm interviewing her daughter on here, and her daughter got in archery. One of those
Yeah,
that she didn't even think about it, but you know, the kid's doing it, so you're going to do it with them.
exactly.
And that's the nice thing about archery is you can start at any time
Yeah,
as long as you're big enough to hold up a bow and pull it back.
exactly.
And they have 5 pound bows, so most kids can pull back 5 pounds.
Oh yeah.
That's not much.
Nope.
And then just go from there,
Yeah,
in your 70s and 80s. It's a little bit harder starting because you got to be open and coachable.
yeah,
And if you really want to learn, you can learn.
exactly. I see it all the time. I've got people I coach from literally 3 years old into their 70s and 80s, like all the time, just randomly driving by. Oh, I always want to try that. Just stop in and try it. So,
Yeah, that's always the fun part is when you get somebody new, or even the funner ones is when one comes in and the other one really, I've had this more times. The guy comes in looking at new bow and whatever, and the wife is standing there, and I say, "You want to shoot? Nah, I don't shoot. Just shoot one shot. Yeah, just try one." So we set one up for after the first shot to say, "Ooh, that's fun. Can I shoot again?" Of course
exactly.
you can shoot it again
Yeah,
and again and again.
yeah,
Just keep shooting. And especially when
yeah.
you teach them. When I had my store, all my bows come with shooting instruction. I'm going to teach you the correct form,
There you go.
or as correct as can get. I teach one way, and then I teach all my students the same way, and then we modify it because each student is a little bit different.
Exactly.
You got to work with something different.
Yep.
And just get them going, and if they can hit the target, at least
Yeah.
close,
Yeah.
they get hooked.
Yeah, we do a lot of like local events, and sometimes a lot of times we'll have a line at the booth for people to try archery, and a family of like three kids will come up, and the two older kids will come up, and then the youngest one is just cannot pull the bow, but they're like 2, 3 years old. And I actually came up with a way to help them just so they can get the shot off. I literally hold the bow with them, their hand is on the bow. I put my finger under the arrow and I tell them, okay, grab the string under my finger. I pull it back for them and I count, okay, 1, 2, 3. And when I get to 3, my finger goes and they can't hold on to it, so it fires. And they
Yeah.
love it. So who knows? Maybe they'll remember it and they'll come back, and maybe not. But they got to try it.
And I know there for several years the I don't know if it was Outdoor X or something that's coming here to Omaha, and I helped out at that. And I spent most of my time on my knees helping little kids. We'd put on the backstop, we'd put tons of balloons, so they almost
Yeah,
couldn't miss a balloon.
yeah,
And I got pretty good at aiming by pulling it back with them, like you just said,
yep,
and aiming, and then popping that balloon, and their just eyes just light up.
yeah.
When you pop
And
that balloon, it's like it's hard
yeah,
not to
it's
miss
great.
it, but still, they popped the balloon.
Yeah. And heck, balloons are great any age. Like, don't get me wrong. Like I said, I'm a target shooter, so I do 3D, I do indoor, and shooting paper targets is great. But if you want to have fun with a group, I don't care how old they are. They could be literally 80 years old. They're gonna have a blast popping balloons, like all the time. If you want to have fun, just put up some balloons and let them pop them. Like it's a reactive target, so it's great.
Yeah, yeah, that's the nice thing about the balloons is, that's a big target,
Hmm.
you know, especially get some of the balloons blow up to be, 6, 8 inch balloons.
Exactly.
And even a not a good shooter can generally hit one of them, or
Yeah.
at least come close.
And the cool thing is, as they get better, I always have fun with it because I tell them, okay, you pop that balloon. Now you get one a little smaller. And I literally, as they pop them, I make them smaller and smaller and smaller. And it forces them to kind of focus more. I even have water balloons that I blow up with air, and they start popping those. Like it's a blast. It's great.
Yeah. Well, that kind of reminds me of a training technique that um, I had that explained and kind of thinks pretty good. You take a single spot target and you shoot anywhere on the target. It's fine. Then you move back and move back, and then you go back up close. You cut the outside ring off, and you shoot at it to different distance. Next, then you cut the next ring off and
Yep.
shoot it. And if you miss, you have to start all over again.
Okay.
And then tell the next thing you know, you're shooting. You got the 5 spot. The just the white in the middle where the X ring is, and
Yep.
you're shooting that at 20, 30, 40 yards wherever you can go back, and then
Hmm.
you cut just the X ring, and and now you're shooting the X ring at 20.
Yeah.
Like you can go really good.
Yeah. I
And
It was funny not yesterday, but the Sunday before. I had a 9-year-old girl literally shooting a balloon that's small, and it was a water balloon, so I could actually put some air into it, and it was only it was the size of a dime. Like, and she nailed the thing on the first shot, but she had fun doing it.
yeah,
And by making it slightly smaller every time, it gives them that challenge that they want, and then when they do it, it's just that excitement, and I love that. I love teaching archery because it's almost like I'm relearning how it all that stuff that I'm it's almost like I'm relearning everything again. And so I see the passion on their faces, and I love it. It's great.
yeah, yeah. I've last I think 3 years now. I've been helping out at Nebraska. I live in Nebraska, and you're in Pennsylvania, I think.
Yep.
And I'm in Nebraska, and I help out with game and parks. They use a lot of volunteers, and a friend of mine I've known for 30 years. She's runs the um, basically a lot of the outdoor events in on archery, and she has the women in the outdoors, and she has a couple things for the ladies, and I go down to help her teaching the ladies, and some of them have never shot a bow before, so we're teaching them how to go, and they get
Mhm.
excited, they start hitting stuff, and sometimes they'll have their own bow, and then and then I work on different stuff with them, a little more precision stuff. But it's just kind of interesting how, you get down there and you help it. And, even, this last couple of years, I haven't been able to shoot my bow because of surgery. And then I had an accident here. It was in an accident and this took
Sorry to
everything
hear
else
that.
away. So, but I can still teach.
There you
I don't
go.
have to draw a bow back to teach.
Yeah,
Last time I was down stringing a little light recurve was challenge. So I couldn't pull my bow back, but I can still teach you how to do it because I don't have to shoot.
there you
You
go.
know, I'm using my mind instead in my mind and what I know to help teach, and I can demonstrate stuff without them. And there's all kinds of stuff that you can learn by teaching.
Oh yeah.
Students that don't know when they run into problems. Then there's always a way to fix it.
Hmm.
And our job as a coach is to fix what they are not understanding.
Exactly.
Because you have your way of teaching it. I have my way. I teach a completely closed stance. So when that arm, the holding arm goes off, it goes straight to your target.
Okay.
I'm teaching open stance, and now when you shoot, that arm goes to the back side. It
Hmm.
has to, because you're putting force on the back of the hand part to hold it out in place.
Yeah.
Well, if I try and teach a beginner that way, they're going to hit the arm 100% of the time.
Hmm.
Guaranteed, because
Yeah.
holding it like a baseball bat, it puts that arm in the way and your arm's out straight. And they always have a little bit of bend, but still, if you don't put that right, it's, as you're in your hand this way, as you turn that hand, it pushes that elbow out.
Yep.
And now then you don't have to worry about hitting it. I even shoot my recurve the same way. I don't
Yeah.
use an arm on a recurve. I don't need to because I'm
No,
using the
me neither.
same form. My arm's in the same position. My anchor point changes because I'm using my fingers, or if I'm using my caliper type, I've got my punching knuckle in that pocket behind the ear. If I'm
Hmm.
using my handheld, I've actually rotated my hand over so it's my ring knuckle that I have right about there. But because I use a kisser, I got a peep. If
Hmm.
those two are lined up, I don't care what the hand does.
Yeah.
It can do anything it wants as long as the release is correct.
Yeah.
That's
Exactly.
the thing there is you got to have a good release.
Yeah. I'm kind of the same way for each. So I do, like I said, I do every kind of archery. For traditional, I'm I'm feeling the canine through the cheek. For Olympic, I'm under the jaw. For hunting, I've got my caliper trigger and I'm right behind the jawbone. And for my hinge release, I'm right on the tendon right there on my neck. Like it's the same thing for me. But they all of my bows have different setups and different arrows and completely just different. But
Well, and
I'm
when
kind
I
of
pick
into that
up my
archery.
compound, I'm looking for sights, anchor point, the whole mess. I
Hmm.
pick up my recurve. I'm not looking for sights. I'm concentrating on where I want the arrow to go, nothing
Yep.
else. Come back to my anchor point and going through.
Hmm.
And if I pick up a compound, I can't shoot it like a traditional bow. My mind just won't let me shoot it that way because it's a different weapon.
Yeah.
Like I don't shoot a rifle like a shotgun or like a handgun. They're all shot
Hmm.
differently.
Yeah.
Well, a recurve or longbow is one way of shooting, and compounds different way. I started off with the recurve. There was no compounds when I started. They
Okay.
didn't come until later, so there was no compounds that you could even try because they hadn't been invented yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it wasn't until the late '60s when compounds were designed, but it
Hmm.
wasn't until the mid '70s that you could actually even really buy one.
Okay. Yeah, that was the whitetail 2, I think, right?
Yep, that's the first
Yep.
compound I shot. My
Yep.
brother bought one.
Yep. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, we actually have a few of them hanging up on the shop right now.
yeah. It was definitely interesting, all the cables they had, and, was
Yep.
it 65% let off and 50% let off or something like that by changing a pin. I forget exactly how you changed it, but that was definitely interesting and shooting way too long a draw length, of course, because
Yep.
didn't know
Yep.
any better. I
Hey.
remember when my first bow, I went into the shop and she handed me a bow and it was like 32-inch draw length. And I drew it back and I didn't know. I drew it back. It's like, how's that feel? Okay. I didn't know any better. And of course, I'm shooting 32-inch draw length. I'm 29 and a half. I shoot 29 now, but I'm 32. So that bow actually broke in half one day.
Ugh.
Aluminum riser. It was a poured riser instead of the new machined aluminum,
Yep.
which I doubt those are going to break unless you dry fire them. But so I'm getting ready for like 2 weeks for hunting season, and I'm down there practicing, and just make sure it's all set up. And my I can't get it sighted in. It won't sight in, and I'm shooting and I'm shooting. It's like no matter I adjust it, it's not sighting in. It's like, what's going on? Of course, I'm not the best archer at that point, because that was
Hmm.
before I even had any shooting instruction. I just, like a lot of archers, just flinging arrows.
Yep.
And I says, okay, I'm going to go up close because I was shooting back 20 yards. So I'm going to go up 10 yards or something like that. And when I drew back and I shot, I'm holding the bottom half of the bow in my hand. The top half come back and smack me in the chest.
Oof.
The riser broke right above my hand.
Wow.
And what was happening, when you think about I was drawing and shooting, and it was slightly starting to bend and deform.
Yep.
Sights are
And
off,
then bend and
bend and
bend
deform,
and bend.
sights off, sights off, sights off, broke. And
Yeah.
now then, 2 weeks before hunting season, I got to find a new bow.
Hmm.
So I found a new bow, and of course, it was too long a draw length, just like before. And I
Yep.
said, okay, I need a 32-inch draw length, and it was American Challenger and high pointed bottom out.
Okay.
Um, So they're sending me a bow, 32-inch draw length, and I had the stickers on it were just they were all crinkled and stuff. So I told them they sent me some new limbs. I had to set one of the local bow shops up to be a high point dealer just to get the limbs into them, and those were defective as well. And
Ugh.
finally, I there was a shop in town that they sold high crunchers, man. So I call them. It's like, okay, I got this bow. I'll never shoot it. I'll never sell it. You sell high point. And they says, well, we don't. It's like, okay. So I finally says, what are you going to sell it for? Okay, how much profit you want? Okay, that's what you can have it for.
There you
I
go.
didn't care. I was never going to sell it because I couldn't sell it because I didn't trust it anymore. But
Yeah.
that's when I got my first real bow that was of any kind of quality.
Yeah.
And I forget which model it was, but it's a PSE.
Okay.
And so I got it and I shot it. I had it all set up. The rest on those was really interesting. It had two pins. In order to
Yep.
adjust the inside one, you had to take the set screw out, take out the outside pin, adjust the inside one, put the other back in, and tighten it down. So finally, I got it all adjusted. I'm shooting 25-12 aluminum arrows. That was before
Okay.
carbons.
Yep.
And when I finally sold it, I says, okay, do not change arrows unless you're changing this rest because that rest is set up perfectly for 25-12s.
Hmm.
So you cannot change one without changing the other because you're not going to go through the work to set that up.
Yeah.
And then after that, I got a Matthews Q2, and I
Okay.
had that for a while. And then I become a PSE dealer. So, and part of the dealer school was to pick up, I got a bow. And told him, I says, I'm shooting the Matthews Q2. Which one of these bows should I be shooting? And I got the PSE Carrera. That was a 2001 PSE Carrera. It
Okay.
was actually rated faster. It shot, I thought, better than the Matthews.
Hmm.
Um, that was great bow. And then since then, I've gotten a couple other ones. My kids are all shooting PSE, and I've got a Scorpion
Nice.
and the Carrera. When
Hmm.
I was working at Bass Pro, or not Bass Pro, but Cabela's, we got all the returns in at our store here in La Vista, and we'd go through and we'd make bows and we'd sell them on our used bow rack.
There you
Well,
go.
I got this bear. I forget what model it was, but it's in the snow camo. At that time, this is like 2016, I think it was, and it was like $900 just for the bow.
Yeah.
It was a high-end bow.
Yep.
Right now, it's sitting downstairs in my safe with a new string all set up, ready to go. I've never put a side of rest on it because I I don't really need it.
Yeah.
So so I got that all fixed up. But that's all I shoot is PSE, and as a PSE dealer, and I used to sell more PSE bows than all the shops combined, and there's like three other shops in town, and that's because, well, that was my main bow.
Hmm.
And the last year I had the store, I added up how many right-handed bows versus left-handed bows. 40% of my bows were left-handed.
Wow. That's a lot. That's a lot.
You know why? Because I
Why?
stocked left-handed bows.
There you go. Yeah.
Now I didn't have very many high-end left-handed bows. But I didn't sell a lot of high end because I had a lot of beginners come in because they
Hmm.
knew I wouldn't sell them stuff they didn't need.
Yeah,
I'd come in, it's like, but try different stabilizers. Try this one, try this. Can you tell difference? No, buy the cheap one.
exactly.
Yeah, later on, they're going to come back. They're going to realize once their skill gets better, there's, oh, I need this more expensive one. But I
Hmm.
didn't sell anything they didn't need. And I had guys sending them to me because they knew I wouldn't oversell them.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I was like, what would I do? I wouldn't want to pay more if I can't tell the difference.
Yeah. I tell people here all the time, I don't make commission here. If I'm not going to push the most expensive bow in the shop here on you, if the bow, I'll have you shoot all different kinds of price ranges in your price range, and I don't care if you buy the bow that's $50 or the higher end of your price range, whatever that might be. It doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is that bow feels good in your hands, because then you're gonna want to pick it up. You're gonna want to practice with it. It's just like a shotgun that kicks the crap out of your shoulder. You're not gonna want to practice with it like you should.
Right.
And a bow that doesn't feel good in your hands, you don't want to shoot as much. So I don't. To me, I don't care. It's not a very good salesman's tactic, obviously, but I don't care whether it's the cheapest bow in the shop or the most expensive. If it feels good in your hand, that's what I'm gonna suggest you to buy. Like that's it.
Yeah,
So
that's exactly what I did. And I owned the store. So
yeah,
the more high end stuff I sold, the more I got my money back.
yep,
But what a lot of people don't realize is the low end bow and high end bow, you got the same profit on either one.
yeah, I know exactly.
It's basically there's not much difference in the profit.
And
Now it's probably different now than it was back when I had a store, but still,
yeah, it's not much different, honestly. But I mean, in reality, if you do that for a customer, more often than not, you're gonna get a customer for life. So
right.
in reality, you'll be making more money eventually. Like it's just how it is. And we're very here at the shop. We have a lot of inventory and a lot of really good techs, and like we truly want. We all love this sport, and we want everyone to love it as much as we do. And like we just having conversation with us, people are like, well, yeah, we can tell you guys are passionate about this. And so there's been times I've come to the shop to practice for myself, and someone will come up and say, hey, Jonathan, can you help me with this? I'm like, you know what? Sure, no problem. And I'll help them. And it's just how we always do it here. We we're a big dysfunctional family, and it's kind of getting to the point where I remember when we first opened, Russ, the owner, stood in front of the front door. We had a big barbecue, grand opening party and barbecue, and he's like, "Guys, we did it. We have our clubhouse." And that's literally what this is. Like, people come here, they shoot a little bit, they hang out, we have a good time. Um, we're always helping each other just get become better shooters. We have leagues three nights a week, and never is there a point when anyone's like, "Oh, this person's getting better. I'm not going to help them anymore." Even though we're all technically competing against each other in leagues and competitions, if I spot something someone's doing, or if they spot something someone else is doing, or that I'm doing, or whatever, we're going to point it out to them in a manner of in the hopes of actually trying to help the person, make them a better shooter, not in a demeaning way, not trying to be a pain, literally just to make them better shooters. And that way we all progress at the same amount. It's really, really great here. I love this place.
Yeah, that's um, I have my NFA shooters instructor patch on my
Hmm.
3D rig.
Yep.
And it's on there for the only reason is if they have a problem, it's like, okay, I'm an instructor. Come
Yeah.
up and ask me. I don't go around and say, hey, I can make you shoot better, which
Yeah,
most of the time I
exactly.
could, but I'm not
Hmm.
going to go up and tell them that. But that's why I have the instructor patch on my
Hmm.
my 3D rig, just so that it's on my quiver. And if they see it and they have a question, they can ask me.
Yeah,
I'd be willing to help them. It's like I don't care if I can compete against you or not.
exactly. I mean, honestly, the main reason I became a coach was actually to become a better shooter. I, if I could, if I could teach someone how to shoot a bow and spot things that they were doing that and learn how to fix those things or tweak those things to make it work better for them, I'd be able to spot things in myself and my main goal when I became a coach was to become a better shooter. Um, and that happened, but also I truly love coaching, and I really like coaching kids. Like it's seeing the joy on their face is just so much fun for me.
Yeah,
It's great, but yeah.
yeah, that is definitely a point that we get to is like, okay, we're shooting good and we start teaching it, and then watch a video of yourself shooting. And it's like, that's what I'm not telling everybody to do. I'm telling them to do it different. Why am I doing that? And then you go,
Mhm.
it's like, oh, okay, I'm not doing it completely correct because I just watched myself do it wrong.
Yeah,
If you could step back and watch a video of yourself shooting and critique yourself, you can get better. But
yeah.
until you know what to look for, you're
You
not
have
going to
no
see
idea.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like watching a recurve shooter. One time they'll come back and drag across their face. One time they'll pull their hand away. Sometimes it drops down. Sometimes just kind of loops right back, and sometimes open their fingers and then pulls up. And you can't group if you're doing that.
No, you can't. No,
It's
not at
that
all.
consistent release is what you got to do. And so, what kind of services all do you offer at your shop? It looks like I can see some string material back there, and
Yeah, so we do everything. We build strings, we tune, we paper tune, we walk back tune, torque tune. We've got a chronograph. Um, there's there's not much we don't do here, if anything. Um, we have crossbows. We've got a nice big selection of traditional bows. Obviously, a lot of compounds. Um, we actually have three ranges on property. We have an indoor 20-yard range. We have an indoor 10-yard range where we do like um, sometimes we'll do beginner classes in there. We paper tune in there. We do the chronograph. And then outside we actually have a range unofficially up to 70 yards. Um, and we have seminars, we've got leagues, we've got classes, private lessons. Um, 2 months ago, I started a program where once a month, uh, if you want to try archery, you can come in for free and try it. Um, we we set a date, we put it everywhere, make print posters and make posts on Instagram and stuff. Um, and if you want to try archery, you can come that night and try it for free. Everything's supplied. Uh, and yeah, so all we ask is that you call and register before you show up for it. That's it. That's mainly just so I know how many people are going to be here. Like, you know,
yeah. Yeah, it's kind of nice when you have something like that and you have an idea. I'm just going to show up, so
exactly.
okay, does it just need me, or do I need to call in one or two or three
Yep.
more people to help
Exactly.
out with the instruction? And if you got 20 people, you're not going to be able to teach them all at once and put
Yeah.
the amount of
And
effort into it that we like to put in.
yeah, and in reality, most people I could actually have in one of those would be 14. So it hasn't happened yet, but if I had a point where it was more than 14, I'd I'd be like, listen, we have one yes, we're having one that day, but we'll have one the next month and give them the day and kind of put them on a waiting list type thing, or see if they want to sign up for that one. Um, but because our range can handle between tops and bottom shooters 16 shooters, so 14 is pretty good, uh pretty full then, so but
Yeah.
yeah, as far as things we do here, there's we do everything. People ask all the time if we can cut arrows or build arrows, work on bows, and yeah, we do all that. We've been here for, I want to say, 6 to 8 years now. Russ was in the owner was in another location, and then he found this place and he moved. We moved here. Um, I've been here for 5, 6 years now. Um, yeah. So, and like I said, we can make strings in the back, and the only things we don't make strings for are ravens and 10 points because they're so iffy about their uh, other people working on their things and aftermarket strings being on their bows. So
Yeah.
they're all about their warranties. So
Well, and you get somebody makes a string, you don't know the quality of the string.
yeah, yeah,
Somebody that's just starting out don't know may not know what they're doing, and
no,
there's a lot of different techniques you can use for it. And when I had my store, I made strings. Well, I still got stuff to make strings. I just
hmm
can't do the new bows because I can't get strings off and on because my I got one of those old Apple presses. So
okay,
the parallel limb ones, they ain't going to my press because I
yeah,
can't
no,
press them. And even
no,
little portable presses with the little cable, they
hmm
if they're beyond parallel, it won't press them anyway. So I
yeah,
I can't work on those at all. But there's different techniques I use, and
yep,
a lot of them will have the strands won't be tied together. I have a continuous loop,
yep,
so
yep,
I tie the two colors together when I'm doing the color. Get back around, I tie it again in a little bit different spots, so they're not on top of each other. And then on the jig, I'll stretch it on there. So I've got my string completely stretched. There's no difference in them. And,
yep,
I put a lot of pressure, which isn't probably the best for the jig, but I don't care. I want as much pressure to get all those, and I'll even if it's pressure, I'll pull some more on it and get it really precious. So I've never had one stretch after I put them on.
yeah.
There's no
So
settling time. The only thing I have to
yeah,
worry about is where's the peep rotating.
yeah.
And
So actually, the guy, so the owner Russ, he's the one that actually does like all of the strings, and he's really really good. We have a massive jig in the back that has four different stretchers on it, and so we can be stretching a full set of strings while he's making a string a string for a second bow. Um, yeah, so he makes really nice strings. All my competition bows have his strings on them, and they're really awesome. So
yeah, and that's something you always got to be thinking about too. I know back in 2001 or 2004 when I had my store, we'd get the bows in from PSE, the black and white strings,
mhm.
and one of my shooters, he wouldn't even draw the bow back with that string on it. I had to make him a new string because I've had some of those strings never quit moving
Yeah,
because
some of them.
they're the cheap end ones. Then they
Yeah,
started putting like Winner's Choice on and stuff like that. So it's a little bit on the higher end bows. But
yeah,
I just made a new just come in. I knew I'm just going to make them new strings and cables and go from there. And
yeah,
I had nice about making strings is you can get a call like this, like, hey, do you have a string or can you make a string for me tonight? About an
exactly.
hour before you close, or half hour before you close. And I was like, well, no, but knew I made them. That's why he said, do you have
Hmm
one or can you make one? I said, can you come by tomorrow? Because, it's about closing time. No, I got a tournament tomorrow.
Yep,
So, okay, come on in. And it was a Darton. And, on the Darton, their tracks are smaller.
yep,
So you have
yep,
to cut the strands down a little bit because
yep.
normally like 12 to 16 or something like you'd put in 14 and on that bow you had to go down to the 12 or whatever it
Mhm.
was. And so he come in, I made the first string not completely, and then I did the end loop and served where it's going to go around the track. Sure enough, too big. Take it off, throw it away, start over.
Yep.
Because it's not worth trying to take
No,
them
it's not.
apart. It's more time. You make one string and you've got the whole roll paid for of the string material.
Exactly.
So
So
throw it away.
yeah,
So I start again, two less strands and got it done. And then he had to go down to the range because he's in the archer club, and get everything all set up and I think we was about 45 minutes from the time he walked in the door and time he walked out with a new string.
that's awesome. That's awesome.
But he come in after I closed, so I didn't have to worry about being interrupted.
Yeah, that's nice. So that's
Yeah,
really cool.
I had another interesting call one time. The guy says, "Can you set my bow up to shoot two arrows?" And he called the other shops down. They said, "No." They said, "No." I was like, "Okay, interesting. Why?" And so what he wanted to shoot two arrows. He's a motivational speaker. He wanted to get the kids' attention by shooting two arrows and pop two balloons or whatever it was. I said,
Hmm.
well, uh, let's try it. Come on down. Let's play.
Yeah.
And I said, come down after he closed because you can't afford me while I'm open. Because I was curious. And it wasn't a center shot riser, which makes it easier.
Yep.
So we put the stick on rest on. We put two of those on there, and we're adjusting the alignment between the fletchings and different ways because they want to use a release. So we had to do a loops on there. So we're trying a loop for the top arrow, a loop for there, a knock point for the other one, and the other knot below the arrows we found was the absolute best performance. And we tweaking arrows. By the time we got done, the difference in spacing between every shot was less than an eighth of an inch.
Dang. That's
Now,
awesome.
where they hit was a little bit different, but we're measuring the distance between the two, no less than, it's an eighth of an inch is kind of the most we had. That was our normal distance between them. It didn't vary by more than an eighth of an inch. But I went through all kinds of stuff, and we learned, I learned a lot by doing that
Yeah.
because we tried putting the loop in between both of them, knock point, and loop between them. Couldn't get a consistent spacing. It was all over the place. There for a while we thought, well, let's try and get them all in one spot, shooting side by side, even though they start off different. No, that didn't work. And then separate them out, and it was just all messed up. And finally, after going through all that and analyzing what we did, the concept was you pull between the two, the top and bottom one. So when it releases, the force is pushing on both of them straight, consistently
Hmm.
straight from the nock to the tip. And I set up my arrows, you're only shooting one arrow, so that it's level and plumb. I use the levels on the string to make sure it's plumb, and another level on the riser, and then we can, have the rest put where it's supposed to be, where the arrow goes through, top half of the burger button. And now then I put a level on the arrow, and then I adjust the knock. And I don't use any knock points because that does that offset. So you're not
Okay.
pushing straight behind them. So I do tie the knot above and below, and my knots, when I get done with them, you're not untying them. You're
Yeah.
cutting. If you have to take it off, you can't
You're
untie them.
cutting
You
it
got to cut
off.
them off.
Yeah.
Cut it off. Well, the trick is wax your string before you tie it on, and then you pull it tight. It puts up against the knot, so there's no movement of the knock. And then now, when you release, all the force goes through the knock, through the arrow to the tip. That's your most efficient way to transfer all your power to that arrow. Now, with that said, an out of tune bow will shoot the same arrow and is shot on a shooting machine, the same spot every time.
Hmm. Yeah.
So,
That's really interesting. Yeah, I've played around with some traditional bows trying to shoot two arrows just out of you see it in a movie and you're like, oh, I wonder if I can do that, type thing. But yeah, so um that's really cool. I never thought to put that much into it.
well, you've never had him come in and says, "Hey, set my bow up to shoot two arrows."
Yeah, right. Exactly. So
And in order to get the best one, you probably have the middle finger between the two arrows, one above and one below. That's going to give you that pressure above and below as long as you're pulling back so that they're not offset.
yeah,
Now, then, that's going to be the same basic idea as what we set up with shooting a release.
I mean, it makes sense. It definitely makes sense to have it like that. So yeah, it would work.
have
That's
to
really
try it
cool.
sometime.
I will. I definitely will. I'll have to check it out.
Try it sometime. It's weird what the things that you run into when you have a shop. I know you've probably got some stories of stuff come in that
Oh, I've seen so many things. It's ridiculous. Almost every time, day before opening day of hunting season. Hey, can we get a new string? Where do you want it from? Do you want us to make it? Do you want to order it from somewhere? Oh, you don't have them in stock? No. If I had all the strings for every bow in the shop, I wouldn't have room for people. Like, just nuts. But yeah, it's okay. We make it work. We
yeah,
always try to accommodate as best we can.
yeah. That's you make them yourself at the shop, so it's like, okay, you have every string you could ever need. I'll pull off the bow and look on the sticker to make sure what it's supposed to be, and then
Hmm.
I could use the old one, How is it set up? Is there way too much serving going around the cams? You don't
Yeah.
need that much serving. Or is there not enough? Some of them I've seen don't even go all the way around the cam.
Nope.
So I'll make sure I serve more to go around the cam or serve less. If you're shooting compound, you don't need 9 inches of serving.
Nope.
All you need is a serving for the loop.
Hmm.
You don't need any more.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've seen guys that have waxed on the serving too, and that gets all up in the cams, and it's just craziness.
Yeah, I never seen these to wax the strings. If they're showing that much of wear, then you probably have something else going on,
Yeah.
or your string is just way too old.
Well, the guys I mentioned there, it's they just there's time we try to be with the customer for as long as they need us to be, but on days we're really busy, like before hunting season, we get real busy, so we can't spend as much time, and so
Right.
we'll tell them, okay, wax your strings and whatever, and we'll show them, and then they'll come in a few months later and they're like, "Hey, you said to wax our strings, but we're getting a lot of wax buildup." And I look at the strings and they waxed from where it attaches to the cams all the way through the whole thing, and they're getting wax buildup in the channels and like it. I'm like, I told you to wax, but I didn't tell you to wax the serving.
Yeah, that's not the string, that's a serving.
Exactly, but
And I've seen some use way too much wax that's just caked on there,
yeah,
and you don't need that much.
nope.
Put some on, rub it with your fingers. That
Hmm.
way you don't hurt them. I know the scorpion wax is a really nice wax.
Yep,
It comes with
yep,
a piece of leather, and I tell people throw that leather away. You don't want it. You don't need it. It's only going to cause problems. Get
yep.
rid of it. So what you do is just dip your fingers in it, because it's not going
Mhm.
to hurt your fingers,
No,
and then rub it on with your fingers, and that way the heat from your fingers will melt it, and rubbing on the string is not going to cause damage to the string. Now
nope.
you take that piece of leather, you can rub on that and get it really hot and start burning your strings. And now
Yeah,
next thing you
literally
know,
melting them.
you're fraying your strings because you can't feel the fact that you've generated a lot of heat
Hmm.
and friction on there.
Yeah,
So I tell them it's like if you don't need it.
yeah,
Um, if you use it to pull it out and rub it on, but that's too much work. Just
yeah,
use your fingers. And
yeah. It's easier.
I always tell hunters before you go, wax your string before you go hunt. Every hunt. If you
Yep.
hunt every day, wax it before, because the fingers on them is going to let you know if you have any defects.
Yeah, you're gonna feel that too. So, so yeah. Yeah, people are funny sometimes though.
But that's why they come to us.
Exactly. So
They don't know, and they're expecting us to let them know. And as long as they're open for suggestions and they
yeah,
pay attention, we'll help them all you want.
and they don't know what they don't know. So
Right.
yeah, so it's always funny because people come in and they're like, "Oh, this is a lot harder than I thought it was gonna be." Yeah, it's not like in the movies where they just randomly pick this thing up and just they're automatically hitting bullseyes. That's not how it works. You have to try for this. Like it's not a gun, but it's craziness.
Yeah, yeah, it is. That's definitely something that they've never done it. They don't know what it takes to really get good and the
Yeah,
practice it takes. And if you want to shoot archery and you don't really want to do much practice, buy a crossbow.
yeah,
They
yeah.
don't take as much practice.
Exactly. And like so many people in the archery world are against crossbows. And honestly, I don't mind it because yes, so I have a crossbow. I don't necessarily hunt with it. Um Actually I've never hunted with it, but the way I look at it is it's a start. So many people, if you're injured, you have a bad shoulder, bad back, messed up discs in your neck, back, whatever, and you can't draw a bow. Well, if you're a hunter, an archery hunter, it's one way to stay in the woods and keep hunting.
Right.
If you're a kid and you're old enough to hunt, but you can't get that 35 pounds, because in PA, New York, and New Jersey, where it has to be at least 35 pounds. Um, and I'm literally I can be in New York or New Jersey in like with a 5 minute drive. So I'm right where New York, New Jersey, and PA meet. Um, but if they can't pull 35 pounds, they can use a crossbow.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, I have guys come in all the time that are rifle hunters, and they're like, "Hey, I want to extend my season, so I think I'm gonna get a crossbow." And and I've seen techs, not here, but other shops, archery techs be like, "Oh, you don't want a crossbow, you want a compound, you want a traditional, whatever." And the guys don't really have the time or want to put in the time that they need to train for that. So they kind of get discouraged. I encourage rifle shooters to come if they want to extend their hunting season, come get a crossbow. A crossbow is literally a short range rifle.
Right.
More often than not, in a year or two, most likely they're going to be back in here buying a compound or traditional because they fell in love with archery. They fell in love with not freezing their butts off in the woods, you know, um, and the fact that they got so close, they had to get so close to that animal. They're like, you know what? I do want to try that compound or traditional archery thing. Why not? And then they come back and they do get a compound or traditional bow, you know. So for lack of a better term, it's almost like it's like a gateway to archery, you know,
Right.
crossbows. It gets them into it. If something will get someone into archery, that's a good thing. Why I don't get why so many people are down on crossbows anymore. I I want this sport and this form of life to just thrive so much and shoot a crossbow if that's what you want to do. I don't care. Like it's still archery.
Well, after all, what is archery? It's a
Yeah,
stick with a string flinging another stick.
exactly. Exactly. So that's archery.
Whether you grab a stick off a tree and grab some sinew or some other vines that you strong enough you can do, and grab another
Mhm.
stick and groove a notch in it and put a stone on the front. It's archery.
Yeah.
You know, that's what
I
they
mean,
did
heck,
65,000 years ago.
yeah. I remember growing up, my dad would make me bows, and it was literally just a stick, a piece of twine, and then he'd carve me these little arrows. They didn't last me long, but it was fun.
Yeah.
You know, I had a good time with it, and I got pretty good with them. So yeah. But people have some funny thoughts anymore.
Yeah. Well, it's what's been probably the most challenging, um, not really person, but challenging person you had to teach. You know, what was going on with one of your more challenging instructions?
Um, so I've got a lot of kids that punch their triggers. Um, and I'd be working with them. Blank bail, they're fine. As soon as they open their eyes, though, they're the target's in front of them. They're bang. Um, and I figured out a way for that to help them with that a little more. Um, and honestly, I break it up. I get them comfortable with being at full draw on their target, touching their trigger, and that's the first goal. Get to anchor, touch your trigger. You want to punch it after that, punch it. But once that touching the trigger becomes a habit, then I can say, okay, now slowly squeeze that trigger, just to get them to slow down. Um, and then we start going into back tension stuff. Um, that that was that's a really hard one. Um, and honestly, majority of the time, it's older gentlemen. They're kind of stuck in their ways. They know they need the help, but they're like, it's almost like they're like, oh, but I've been doing like this forever. Yeah, but you just told me you wanted to be better, and you need to be better. So stop arguing with me. You know what I mean? Like we're guys. we have certain things we think we know everything about, and yeah, it's how that's how it is sometimes. But
Yeah,
uh,
I've seen
older
that as
gentlemen,
well.
definitely older gentlemen, but that's okay. I
Generally,
keep
it's the ladies that are more open and
yeah,
coachable.
yeah. They don't have any expectations as far as or need to be macho or anything like that, and like guy I'll do lessons with guys all the time, and they'll bring in these long bows, the treated compound bows, like 60, 70 pounds, and I'm like, and I'm watching them shoot, and they're shaking as they draw. I'm like, okay, I understand you want to do this lesson with your bow, but in reality, if you do that, you're not going to get anything out of this. Because, and they're like, why? What do you mean? And and I tell them it's because you are concentrating so hard on pulling that weight, you cannot pay attention to anything else. So I tell them, let's use one of our range bows that are 15, 20 pounds. Yes, it seems like a child's weight, and I get that, but with a lightweight bow, you can truly pay attention to your form. If you can
Yes.
get that form down, then then you can and make that consistent, then you can go to the heavy bow and you might be a little better. But if you try shooting this lesson with your 60, 70 pound, whatever bow, you're, you won't get much out of it. Let's go to the light one. That way you will. So, like I
Well,
said, we try to
and
be
like I
very customer oriented. So I want people that do lessons with me to get as much out of it as possible. I could be like I could say, "Oh, yeah, use that," and then get them to do more lessons with me and make more money for me. But that's not my goal in the matter. So,
yeah, I always tell them if you can't draw back slowly like a deer is watching, it's too much weight.
mhm.
So if you're
Yeah.
struggling or you have to do all this gyration or come and then all this movement in there, it's like no, you need to learn proper form and proper weight and on compounds the proper draw length because
Yeah.
that'll change a lot too.
Yeah. That's one thing, Mike. So I have a coach that comes and works with me for competition and stuff. And when he does seminars, that's his number one thing. He makes sure your bow fits you perfectly. And that's just how he does it. And I remember he did a seminar here not that long ago, and we had enough time in his seminar to that he was like, okay, well, we got extra time. Let's do the fixes on your bows because he literally watched every single person in that seminar shoot, and he was like, okay, your draw length's a little too short, yours is too long, your D loop's too short, all these different things, and he literally just went and did all of those fixes for the as part of the seminar. So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's always nice when you can get somebody that look at that
Hmm.
and that's outside it has some experience and
Yep.
help you make your adjustments and that's the thing is you got to be open and coachable and if you're
Yeah.
not then you're wasting your time and wasting their time.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and the other thing too that I've noticed is like I spot certain things. Some of the other people that work here, the other coaches, they spot other things that I don't always notice. So I actually tell my students that I've been working with for a while, I tell them, hey, you should have so and so do a lesson. You should have Russ do a lesson. You should have Alex do a lesson, whatever. Just because they'll spot something that I might have missed,
Yep.
and just makes them a better shooter. So that's how I try to do it for my regular lesson people, the students.
Well, and the kind of key thing to bring out what you said earlier is you're a coach, an archery coach, but yet you have an archery coach that teaches you.
Hmm.
So you have a coach, You're a
Yep.
coach, you have a coach. So, you know, how is the normal person that don't have a coach or don't want to be taught by anybody, how are they going to learn? Because
Yeah.
you can learn it by trial and error. Do you want to learn it by trial and error, or you want to cut that short? What might take
Mhm.
you 10 years to figure out, you can figure out in 10 sessions,
Yeah.
maybe,
Yeah.
or even 10 minutes of the first session.
Yeah. Honestly, so when Russ first opened here, I was an okay shooter. I started coming here and doing leagues with them, and like I said, I was an okay shooter and I have some good shots, but there were times when I take a shot and it was a complete miss, and I didn't understand it because it all felt the same to me. But the other guys that were here, the other people that were here were shooting, they would literally be like, "Hey, we see you doing this. Try this," and so on and so forth. And it was almost like I got coaching for free. And um, literally within 1 year, I went from an okay shooter to going to the Pennsylvania State Championships and coming in second place in 1 year. And that was from just people giving me little observations in league. Like, if you get that, if I had actually had the money to do a coach back then, I can't imagine how where I'd be now. Like, I wish I had started with a coach earlier, but I just couldn't afford it. So,
Yeah. Well,
so
and when I have my store, that's one of the things I give. You know,
yeah.
I sold a lot of the Nova bows, which at that time was their low end entry level bow, and
Okay.
there was three different weights. I forget what there's a 29 and 27, 24, something like that. I don't remember now, but I would stock two rights and one left of all those three different sizes.
Hmm.
You know, and hence my statement earlier, I sold 40, my last year's 40% left-handed bows because I stocked them. And I
Yep.
stock a few of the upper ones, but I didn't stock too many of the high-end ones just because, the expense.
Yeah.
But one of my shooters was left-handed.
Okay.
So he was in, he goes, bring his bow in. One time we ordered a new bow in for him, and he was there picking it up. Somebody's looking for that exact same bow and left-handed and shot it and sold it to him. And then I had ordering a new one for him. But that's what your staff shooters are there for, is to
Yep.
help out when they can. And hey, bow comes in, here, sell this one, order a new one in. And
Exactly.
what I did was a lot of people sold that Nova bow. I used
Hmm.
to call it Dan Fitzgerald. His name was on it for a while. It's the same Nova bow.
Yeah.
And I mine was more expensive
Okay.
than the standard because mine included setup. Mine included I tied on some string silencers, the skirt material for bass jigs.
Okay.
It cut like a 3-inch piece, cut four different pieces. We'd tie them around there, and anytime they made little balls on them, they
Nice.
form those little balls like your roller skates use, little pom poms or whatever.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
and we'd put those on there. It come with a release. It was one of the True Fire, the low end ones. At that time, it was like a $20 release. I'd get them from PSE for like $11. They're a low end one. They were cheap. I don't recommend them. But I included that with them. And I included six arrows and tips and fleshed with veins in whatever color you want. That's
Mhm.
how I set up. Plus shooting instruction.
Yep.
So nobody could price compare against them because, well, you got to go out and buy half a dozen arrows. You got to buy a release. And oh, if you buy the bow by itself, I had one guy said, well, you think I could, he bought the same Nova bow from, I don't know where it was, Walmart or whoever it was sold it. I don't know who it was. And he says, you think, I could set them, well, you could bolt them on, but I'm going to charge you $40 to set them up correctly. And I'm also going to sell you half a dozen. I'm going to also include six arrows if you buy them from me and shooting instruction. So I'm take it back. He bought it for me
Yeah.
because of the extra service I provided. At that
Hmm.
time, I was charging $100 an hour for shooting instruction.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know what it is now, but shooting instruction is going to be way more than that.
Yeah. It's not cheap.
Yeah. Now, normally you don't need a full hours of me sitting there with you because I'm going to teach you, you're going to shoot, practice, and come back later. But
Hmm.
I included in shooting instruction with the bows because I wanted to make sure they knew how to shoot
Hmm.
Because if they don't know how to shoot, just set it up. Here, go. Well, what do I do? How do I shoot? And
Hmm.
I'd teach them, the proper grip, and actually you're not gripping your bow, but the proper hold and back tension release and all that. And one of the things I would do is um, teaching somebody what a good shot feels like. And they don't know what it feels like. So I'd say,
Yep.
okay, you aim, be back like 20 yards or 10 yards, whatever it was at. And you aim, put your finger way above the trigger, and you just aim, and I'm going to pull the trigger. And boom, I pull that trigger. They don't know when it's going off. And all of a sudden, their
Hmm.
just front hand goes forward and the back end comes back. And it's like, that's what a good release feels like. If it
Hmm.
don't feel like that, it's wrong.
Yep.
And now they know. So now that they shoot, it's like, oh, okay, it didn't feel right. And then they get one, it's, oh, that felt good. And then they can learn what that one feels like if they ever felt one. Until then,
Exactly.
how do you know what a good release feels like? You don't.
Yeah. And it's hard to explain too. It's like explain how something tastes. Explain how chicken tastes. You know, you can't explain how something feels because we each feel things slightly differently, you know. So it's yeah, that's a really good way of doing that because it's like I said, you can't explain how something is supposed to feel.
Yeah, and that just makes it so much easier to do. And when I explain everything, I teach them one way to do it, and then I'm explaining why I'm teaching that.
Hmm.
Because I can't just say because that's what I told you to do.
Yeah.
They're not going to understand it, but I say, okay, here's why I do that.
Yep.
Like I teach that, closed stance, and I want that hand to go straight to your target. That's the most efficient way, right? Straight to your target. And to demonstrate that, I used to have a string with a loop goes around my thumb with my draw length, and I would practice with it when my form wasn't feeling right. I'd
Hmm.
practice with it, and it'd hang up on my hand. Okay, wrong. As soon as I got that form down again, it would jump straight off my hand, straight to the target where I'm aiming.
Hmm.
When that string goes that way, that is the most efficient way to put air, in there and consistent because now it's consistently going to the target. So they're kind of mostly your elbow and hand is coming back this opposite direction as your hand.
Hmm.
And,
Yeah.
and that was a good practice technique.
Yep.
It was in my 3D rig, but last time I looked, I don't know where it went. But I have a whole roll of camo loop material, so I'll just make me another one.
Yeah. Yep. There you go. I have something like that with a with paracord, you know.
Yeah,
So same thing. But, but yeah. So um but yeah. Did you have any other questions for me, Rory?
oh no, I imagine you've got some good stories on some hunting stories because I know you hunt, but we've
Oh
been
yeah.
talking about your store stuff, which is really cool. You learn what you do, and we can if you're in a Pennsylvania, yeah, or New York or New Jersey area, definitely stop in. If I was to get out that way, I'd definitely stop in and see you guys.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
I'm a
Please,
long ways
anytime.
away. But
Anytime. Anytime you're always welcome. I mean, we're literally an hour and a half from New York City, so it's not bad. And I've got guys coming from Brooklyn, Bronx, traveling at least that to come see us. Um, we're maybe 3 hours from Lancaster, so you know, and people are always
yeah,
going there.
yeah. Yeah, 3 hours away. I've driven that far, to go to a place. I was in Colorado, and I wanted to go down to Rifle, Colorado, to go to Shooter's Cafe, which
Nice.
is Lauren Boebert's restaurant, which is now closed because the owner um, didn't want to renew their lease for some reason. But I drove down there just to go there,
Yeah.
have lunch,
Yeah.
and I thought it was kind of cool, where the waitresses and waiters, the whole staff was carrying a gun.
That's
It's
really
like,
cool.
hey, that's the only restaurant I've ever been in that I felt completely safe whether I had my gun or not.
Exactly, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Now there was one lady in there. She wasn't old enough yet. She wasn't 21, so she
yeah.
wasn't carrying, but everybody else was. And it's
Hey.
like, I didn't bother me.
Hmm.
I just thought it was neat. So I drove, what is it, 3 hours around here? I think it's an hour and a half from Denver.
Wow.
Yeah, just go have lunch there. I drove for 3 hours just to go have lunch at that one specific place.
Nice.
So get out that way, I'd definitely, stop by some of these places and, that stop in and see them and chat and, you
Yeah.
know, maybe do it
Yeah.
in person interviews and
That's always fun. It's
yeah,
always fun. But
yeah,
yeah, I
and
mean, for hunting, I mean, I hunt a lot of whitetail, some bear, uh, not much turkey. I would love to get out to like Colorado, someplace like that, do some elk hunting, anything like that. But yeah, so I hunt as often as I can, and then as soon as hunting season's over, it's indoor competition season, and then when that's
yeah.
over, it's 3D season. So it's always something.
There's always something, and after 3D season, it's hunting season again, and
Exactly. Start all over again. But my wife, God bless her, she puts up with it. She puts up with it for me. That's actually how I knew she was going to be my wife because uh, we had the Great Outdoor Sportsman Show was right in Harrisburg, which is about a 3 hour drive from me. Um, and one year I went to that shoot 3, 4 times in one week. And like I said, it's a 3 hour drive one way. And she came with me every time and sat and watched me shoot for 2 hours every time. And I was like, this is a good girl, So yeah,
she's a keeper.
yeah, she's a keeper. So asked her to marry me, and we got married.
That's right.
Now I'm
Does
trying
she
to get her
shoot
to learn how
now?
to shoot. Huh?
Oh, I asked you, does she shoot now? And
She's working on it. She has a compound and a recurve, and I try to get her to shoot as often as she can. But she's also a certified teacher, so she's doing that as well. So,
yeah, so
but
she's busy.
yeah, she's very busy. She makes time. She shoots whenever she can, though.
Yeah, it's kind of nice when you can get out and shoot. I have a target in the backyard, but right now I can't pull my bow back anyway, so it just kind of sits there.
Yeah, yeah. I got some shoulder thing. I'm gonna be going to the chiropractor for on Friday, and then right after that, I'm going driving out to Lancaster for my because I have to do my practical for my level 3 archery qualification. So coaching qualification, I mean. So I'll be doing that Friday, and that'll be a good time.
Well, and then get some more coaching in, and it's always good to learn, different techniques
Oh
and stuff
yeah,
like that. And you know, it, you get in, you learn from somebody different, and you know, everybody I talk to that's a coach, has slightly different stuff that they teach and the way they teach, and as a coach is like, okay, I don't do it that way. I've never done it that way, but hey, let's try it.
yeah,
And you try it one time, it doesn't work. That's not trying it.
hmm,
You got to actually shoot it for a while. It's like the first time I learned about what, somebody told me about back tension release. I said, well, how do you know when it's going to go off and when you're going to shoot target? And it's like, and then after I learned, it's like, oh, okay, that's why. And the first time I'm shooting, it's you're going through, you spend all this money. Back in '95, it was like $300 or something to go through that and then also get certified as an instructor and stuff like that. So that was 95 was $300 was you know a chunk of change.
yeah,
I was an engineer, so it's not like it was a whole week's pay, but
yeah,
it was still a little bit.
yeah. It was a good
And
time.
it was the price of a bow.
Yeah, yeah. I
I don't
mean,
think I paid that much for my first bow.
yeah. I mean, the online portion is $100 right now. The practical is going to cost me 250, so that's 350 right there. And then it's a 16-hour course, so I have to be there overnight. So there's the hotel and food and gas and all that. So it's not but it's worth it. It'll be worth it.
And that's why we don't do a lot of coaching for free.
Hmm.
Um, you know, I'll do one session,
Yep.
and get you going. And I did one for 45 minutes, and the guys group went from about a 5 or 6 inch group to 3 hours touching. 2 weeks later, he sent me a picture, 3 hours touching.
Nice.
And I just spent 45 minutes when it seems like
Yeah.
that's about all you need.
Yeah.
And it's like, there you go. But, then to go to the next level, again, you need a little bit more often. And,
Yeah.
and that's where you pay a coach all the time because we can see stuff that you're not going to be able to see.
Yeah.
Uh,
And it's funny too, because like so when I was a ballet dancer, you'd have all those mirrors in the room and you could literally look at yourself and see what you're doing and doing right or wrong. You can't do that with archery. If you have a mirror in front of you, well, you can't shoot unless you don't like the mirror. Or if you have the mirror to the side of you, looking at your full side form, if you turn your head, well, now your form's not right. So
right.
you can't do a mirror for archery, and so the only things you can do is record yourself. But if you don't know what you're looking for, that's not going to help anyway.
Right.
The only other thing you can do is have an actual coach. So I do. I Saturday I was helping some guys shoot out to 70 yards, and I saw some things that I thought I could help them with. So I gave them. I was just like, hey, try this, focus on this, things like that, and before they left, they were asking me for my business card. So I'm gonna get lessons out of that. I mean, yeah, I gave them those pointers for free, but I was working with them, so I had to charge them labor for the shop,
Right.
but then I am gonna get lessons out of it. So it's I don't mind giving people like little pointers here and there because if it works for them, then they're gonna be like, oh right, that Jonathan showed me this. I want to know what else he knows that can help me. So then they're gonna do lessons anyway, you know. So that's just something I like to do.
Well, and if you're willing to give that away for free, what would I be getting if I was actually paying him to teach me?
Exactly,
You
exactly.
know?
So yeah, it's like I said, I love this sport. I love teaching it. I literally cannot say enough how much I love this entire sport. But in every aspect, whether you're a hunter, whether you're a competitor, whether you're shooting off horseback or just plinking around in your backyard, there's so many life lessons you can learn from archery and so many good things you can get, receive, and learn just shooting a bow. It's amazing, and I'm still
Well,
learning.
it's
Doing it for years, so
yeah, and it's calming because if you have something you're thinking about or concentrate on or worried about, you're not shooting your bow.
yeah,
You're just not going to shoot it. You have to basically clear your mind
hmm
because all you're thinking about is storing energy and aiming.
yeah,
That's all you're doing. You're
yeah,
concentrating on aiming. And if you think about anything else, you're not aiming. So what are you going to
yeah,
hit? Don't
yeah.
know.
So in that
Where are
way,
your pants playing?
in that way it almost becomes like therapy, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and then the other aspect is too to do it well. You're not necessarily trying to steer the bow. You're not shooting the arrow. The bow's shooting the arrow. All you're actually
Right.
doing is supporting the bow and drawing the bow. So if you're trying to steer it and control it and do something you don't want to do, you're actually putting tension into your body. And when in reality, you want to be as relaxed as possible without collapsing that bow. So that, in my opinion, that is how it almost becomes meditative. And some people, when I tell them this, look at me like I have three heads. But I've always found that if I am relaxed on the line, whether I'm in a competition or hunting or whatever, my shots go off a lot better. You know,
Yeah.
it's it just calming and it's also the hardest thing to do in archery, I think, because you're in the woods hunting, you're cold, so you're shivering, and the animal you've been waiting for comes walking in, whether it's a little doe or the animal of a lifetime, right? So now you've got adrenaline pumping through you, and good luck trying to relax then, right?
Yeah.
In a competition, you're on the line with anywhere from tens to thousands of people, right? And sometimes there's a camera in your face, there's music playing, there's people talking, you're nervous, you don't want to look like a moron and do something wrong. Uh, you might be excited and try relaxing then. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
tell I tell my students all the time, if you can shoot relaxed and you can do it in those situations, you're going to be a good shooter in any aspect of shooting sports, whether it's a gun, a bow, a slingshot, even. Like, if you can shoot relaxed in any form of shooting, you're going to be a much better shooter. And, and and that's how I find it to be meditative because I have to relax and I have to concentrate on my form and nice, chill, let it flow.
Yeah, I know when I had my store, I wasn't getting out hunting much, and I was just, it, the only time you're not working is when you're asleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you're if you're up, you're thinking about, okay, what do we need to do to the store? What I needed to get, make more money coming in,
Mhm.
get more money coming, get more customers coming in. Okay, I got to worry about, okay, are they stocking the shelves? Because if I don't stock them, they end up not getting stocked. You're
Mhm.
thinking about all that, and I finally got out to go hunt, and I'm doing is thinking about what I got to do, what I got to do, what I got to do, and
Mhm.
it took me probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 times getting out before I could, like, okay, start relaxing. And, until then, you're thinking about everything else, and you're finally getting out there and relaxing. If somebody come by, I'd have probably, not even known what to do.
Yeah, I mean, I Russ is always thinking about this shop. I'm just the manager. I'm always thinking about the shop. If you ask my wife, she'll tell you he thinks about that archery shop way too much, and he's just the manager. So,
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely interesting, and for those that want to learn a little bit more about archery, and if you join the Arch Talk 101 Facebook group, there, I don't allow you to sell anything in there, because if I see anything for sale, I always delete them and ban them. It's there for content. If you want to learn something, if you have a question, ask it. And,
yeah,
and I'm sure, going out to you guys there, the Silver Birch Archery there in Pennsylvania, if you have a question, just contact you. You've got social media, you got Facebook,
yep,
and
yep,
I'll leave a link to your store as well as the Facebook account in the
okay,
description, so they can find you a little easier. And
yeah,
just ask them if you need something worked on and you're in that area. Definitely come out and see you. Just what little I've talked to you, for what is about an hour and a half here now. Um, I'd be confident to let you work on my bow, and
thank you, I
nobody works
appreciate
on my
that.
bow but me.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Because you you get archers. You've probably seen this too. An archer comes in and you've been working on their bow, and you're busy with somebody, and they won't let nobody else touch it but you.
Yep, I see it all the time,
You,
all the
you
time.
know, or somebody else worked on their bow. They won't let you touch it, and you're quite
Hmm.
capable. When I was at Bass Pro, there was um, 4 of us there that had multiple years of experience working on bows.
Hmm.
And somebody come in, and John was the one working on her bows last, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna wait for John. Well, it's a 2-hour wait to get John to work on your bow. Okay. Eh, they could have got worked on now, but they wanted John to work on the bow. Or somebody
Yep.
comes in, it's like, okay, right, there's your customer today. And especially they come in, just come to me at the store. When I had that, when I closed it, they'd come in
Hmm.
the Bass Pro, and it's like, okay, I'm the only one they would let work on their bow, because they knew me and they'd been working with me. And of
And they
course,
knew that you knew what you were doing.
yeah.
Yeah.
And some of the guys, I'd worked with them enough to know that they think their bow is crap until finally get it all the bugs worked out of it, set up exactly like they like it, and then, oh man, it's a great bow. Get a new one. Oh, it's all crap again. You know,
Yep. Yep.
one of those,
Yep.
and you go through that, and it's like, we don't get a set because they don't want us to work on the bow. It's nothing personal. It's just nobody wants just anybody to work on a bow, so don't trust them.
Yeah.
My one
Yeah.
staff shooter, I was the only one that could touch his bow besides him. He wouldn't let nobody else work on his bow. Well, I had no other techs that knew what I knew, so it's not like there was somebody there when I had my store that was quite as capable as I was. They could do basic stuff, because all my techs knew how to take limbs off and lubricate limb pockets. Because back then, all the Nova bows come in, you draw them back, and they creak.
Yep. Yep.
They never lubricated the pockets well enough. So the first thing we'd do, get the bows in, they'd take it down, lubricate the pockets, put it back together, make sure the string was waxed, tie on the string, silence of the Jim used to call them poofa balls,
Hmm.
because they had a little bitty balls, and we cut them and they form little balls, and it's like kind of fun. And we'd tie those on there, and we get it up. We basically set the rest up so it was there. I could set up the rest and the sight on it so the left and right was basically perfect because I could just eyeball it. I've
Hmm.
done so many of them. I just hold like, yeah, okay, okay, that's good. Sight, yep. Look at the string. I can't see the pins, so the sights are good. Up and down, I knew about where they needed to go, and I've got you in the ballpark without using any levels or anything or any
Yeah.
lasers. I used the laser to put the rest on for the center shot.
Okay.
I don't know if you have one. You take your slide off, you bolt it on, and you turn
Hmm.
the laser on, slide it back onto the string, and you adjust it so it's right in the center of the string. And with the arrow on, you turn it out to go to the tip of the arrow. You adjust the arrow so that laser is the tip of the arrow, and now then you're perfectly center shot.
Nice. Yeah, we don't have a laser like that. Honestly, I'll use I have a ruler, my machinist ruler that I use, and it's down to like a hundredth of an inch type thing. So
Yeah,
that's what I'll use generally.
yeah, I like the laser because it's you don't have to worry about trying to measure it and seeing it and making sure you're lined up perfectly on it. You just line it back. It's on the string, boom, out to the tip.
There
I
you
might, I
go.
might do a video on setting one of those up one time. I don't
Yeah,
think I have a video on my YouTube channel on how to use one of those. I just haven't
that'd be
figured. That
cool
might
to
be
see.
another
I,
video
I
up
would
there.
definitely check that out.
Yeah, yeah. I'll have to let you know when it comes out.
Yeah,
Just
please.
watch it. You'll see it if you subscribe. You'll get notified when I put it out.
Okay, there you go. There you go.
So, yeah, it's uh, there's a lot of information out there, and as I create some of that stuff, I had some lessons that I had and when I was doing online coaching, and there's some of the videos, and I've since put those out on YouTube so that make new ones for whatever,
Hmm.
and that goes through a lot of different stuff, and I did them down in my basement. I
Okay.
got one of those. I got a 1894 house or something, and it's basically they kind of dug it out, and it's okay. I had to make sure I was up high enough because there's like a brick ledge in there, and I set my target on top of it, and had to make sure I was because I was shooting so close. I was shooting like 10 feet away,
Okay.
so I had to make sure I aimed up high enough on there so my arrow didn't hit the brick wall because we're standing 10 feet away. If it hit that brick wall, that arrow's coming back at us.
Yeah.
So I had to make sure it's
Yeah.
up
No
high
good.
enough because I
No
couldn't
good.
hang it down any lower because the brick ledge was too high.
It's funny. Nice.
But I've made videos on making strings, how I make the strings, and um, I've made I made one that I twisted them instead of normally you'll twist them around, spiral them around.
Hmm.
I took the two different colors and I twist them inside of each other. So each
Okay.
strand outside was twisted independently. You put them together and the string forms little V's.
That's cool. That's really
And
cool.
and I actually had a friend of mine, his bow got stolen. It was one of the PSE, I think Quantum or something like that. And the good vibrations, it was the silver, the blue, the I don't know, red, multi different colored ones, like target
Okay.
bow, and ended up getting stolen. It showed up at a shop, and one of the guys says, "I think that's Randy's bow." And so the shop owner called me, and I says, "Yeah, it's okay. That's right. It has a green and red string on it that forms little V's, and there's a worn spot on the grip because his thumb wore the callus on his thumb wore a little spot into the grip." He says, "Yeah, she still wanted the serial number for." It's the only one like that I bought. I bought other bows that model, but the only one in that pattern. So I call up, give us her number. He got his bow back
There you go.
because it was unique. Nobody had a string that formed a green and red string that formed V's.
Yeah.
And then I made one on for my bow that was three colors instead of just two colors.
Hmm.
And instead of just twisting inside, I braided them inside. So I had a
Okay.
braided string, and then you put some twists in it, and that lasted on bow for quite a while, and eventually broke. Sitting in my bow case one one summer.
Yeah.
And then I was so busy doing other things. I probably took me a year and a half to make a string for my own bow.
Yeah. It's working in an archery shop. It's like the shoemaker's kids. They don't have shoes.
Yeah.
It's just how it
Yeah.
is. But you're always working on everyone else's bows, and when it's time to you have free time, the last thing you want to do is work on your own bow.
Yeah.
So but
This is almost nice sometimes to have someone else in the shop you trust working on your bow. And it's like, okay, here, work on my bow.
yeah, so like I generally don't work on mine. My cousin works here, Alex, and I'll have him do my arrows. I'll have him work on the bow. I mean, I'll do a lot of stuff with my bows, but generally he's the one that makes my arrows for me. So I throw him some extra cash, and he appreciates it, so it works.
Yeah. Well, and I've talked to a few that, that as they're shooting and something's messing up and they work on their own bows, like, okay, did I do this right? Did I do this? Did I do this right? And they forget about their form is the problem.
Yeah,
Where if somebody else works on a bow, it's like, okay, I know it's done right because this person does it perfectly every
yeah.
time. So now if it's not something's not right, it's me.
And
And it just
again,
takes one factor out.
yeah, and again, back to the whole certain coaches spot certain things. Same with Botex. Different Botex always look for certain things,
Yeah.
and so he's always if it's paper tunes weird going weird, he looks at the shims always in the on the cams. I personally look for technique and form. Most likely, in my opinion, it's usually technique and form, but there have been times where he was like, oh yeah, those shims, flip them, whatever, and moves the cam over a little bit one way or the other, and now shooting a bullet hole.
Yeah.
So, but it's the same thing with coaches. Like different techs look for different things as well. So it's not never. I totally understand the guys that are like, oh, only so and so can work on my bow. It's not a bad idea though to not necessarily have another tech work on it if they know what they're doing, but maybe just look at it. Just
Right.
see if they see anything, because at a certain point, um, those little things that you miss could in competition cost you points, and even if it's 1 point, you're down 1 point that way. So I've always liked having other people look at different things and spot what can be and what can fix and what can be done. If it gets me extra points, I don't care. like
Yeah.
so
Well, I remember one time I was at a 3D shoot, an indoor 3D shoot, and I'm shooting, and what once in a while there'd be an arrow that would be off, way off.
mhm.
And this is when we're shooting aluminum arrows. So you can probably guess what was wrong.
It was
So
Ben.
yeah. So I'm back there and it's like finally, you'd spin them in your hand. It good. So I spun it. It's like, okay, that one's bent. No wonder I'm throwing fives instead of eights when everything else is hitting in the eights and tens. And so
Yep.
I marked that, put that in a different spot. And so I didn't shoot any more. I didn't drop any more points after that, like,
There you go.
just randomly out because the arrow was bent. Now,
Hmm.
if the new carbons, you're not normally going to have that kind of problem with a carbon because
No.
generally they're straight or broke.
Yep. Unless you shoot them a lot. I've had arrows where I've shot 10,000 arrows, 10,000 shots through an arrow, and the carbon where the insert hits the carbon, it starts mushrooming out.
Oh, yeah.
But that you have to shoot a lot for that to happen.
Yeah. Most of us aren't going to shoot that many arrows.
Yeah, most people.
Unless you're in competition, then you're going to do lots of practicing and lots of
Exactly.
shooting. And
So,
shoot that many arrows, that many times you have to shoot that one arrow, which
hmm.
meant you probably got four others that
Yeah.
you're shooting just as much.
Yep.
And if you're doing 3Ds, it's a good chance you've lost one by then.
Yep. Definitely. So, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's um let's see, what would you kind of uh, advice would you give to a new shooter that's thinking about starting an archery?
I would suggest, so first and foremost, my first question always is, what's your goal? Do you want to hunt? Do you want to compete? Do you want to just learn how to do it because you saw it in a movie and thought it was cool? Um, Depending on their answer, um, I'll tell them, okay, well, I would suggest using a traditional bow first, getting that down because to do that well, you have to have good form, you have to have consistent form, and that form translates very, very nicely to compound later on. On top of the fact that traditional bows generally are a lot cheaper. um, so, I mean, I know in our shop, our cheapest adult compound bow is about $500. Our cheapest recurve, $150. You know, so it's a lot cheaper. And what would you rather have? A $150 bow laying in your closet that you never shoot anymore because you tried it and you didn't like it, or the $500 compound that you bought and ended up not liking for whatever reason. So, um, I always try to get them to try traditional first, um, and then do lessons. If you're shooting with other knowledgeable, good shot shooting people, take their advice. If they are willing to share advice, always take it, no matter what skill level you are, whether you're a sponsored shooter like me, or whatever. If someone gives me advice, I'll try it. You know what I mean? If it works, great. I'll just like a good arrow, I'll put it in my quiver and use it. But if it doesn't work, just like a bad broken arrow, I take that arrow, I snap it, and I get rid of it. You know? So I tell people always, always listen to what listen to people when they're willing to give you free advice. They're not, I can almost guarantee 99% of the time, they're not doing it in a malicious way, in a like trying to sabotage you. They're trying to help. And what they might tell you could help, it could hurt, but you don't know until you try. And
Right.
if you close yourself off to trying new things, you're never going to get better. You know, like you said, like you said before, just always be willing to learn and try new forms of different techniques and all that stuff. So that's what I try to give the advice I try to give shooters, new shooters.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. You mentioned the fact of would you rather have a $150 bow or a 500 one sit in a closet? That's always been my logic on selling beginners. When I had my store, the Nova bow, which was in your $350 range, as
Mhm.
opposed to the high end bows, which are going to be seven, $800, and in accessories, and you're putting $1,000 into it.
Yeah,
And my thought was, which would you rather have sitting in your closet? Uh, and besides, they buy the cheaper one, they don't like it. I don't feel as bad as if they buy the high end one, and now that it's in a closet, I feel bad at directing to this high end bow.
yeah,
Where you're sitting the low end bow, and if they really like it, you know what? I'm still going to sell them the high end bow.
yeah,
I may sell them a middle one before that, so I may sell them two more bows,
exactly.
and more arrows, more sights, and you can take that low end bow, and it's like, you know what? I want a better sight. Change your sight.
Yeah,
You can keep that sight. It's like, okay, I need a better rest. I don't really like this whisker biscuit or whatever they're putting on them now, the low end bows. I want something a little better so you get a better sight. Keep the old um, rest.
yeah.
It's like,
Keep it as a
okay,
backup.
yeah, I want a new bow. Buy a better bow. Move your rest and sight over to that. Put the other ones back on the other one. Now you got two bows. You
Exactly.
can set one up. It's like, okay, I'm going to use this for hunting. I only shoot 20 yards or less hunting. I'm going to set this up just to shoot my hunting arrows. Now I
Yeah.
got another one. And
Mhm.
when you upgrade again, well, maybe you want to get even a better sight or a better rest,
Yeah.
and then you go in there. I like to tell new archers spend a third of your money on a release.
Okay.
If you're buying a $250 bow, spend $100 on a good release because
Yep.
after all, that is your firing mechanism.
Hmm.
And the cheap ones have a lot of travel. When the
Yep.
when you feel the trigger moving, what are you thinking about? Because you feel it moving. You're not aiming anymore. What are you going to hit? Wherever your arm happens to be pointing, you're not going to hit your target.
Yep.
Now, some they'll do that and I just cram on it, and I've seen some shoot pretty well doing that. But
Hmm.
most of your top end shooters are going to use, the finger if they're caliper at the second joint up here and
Yep.
back tension release. If you're using a handheld or a hinge, the hand's turned a little bit different, but it's still the same thing.
Yeah. They're still
Pushing and
using back
pulling
tension.
and I teach back tension to beginners.
Yep.
I say,
I I try to, but a lot of the people I coach are kids, and they they just can't. They don't understand the concept,
right.
and I haven't been able to figure out a way to make it simpler for them to understand. And I'm still working on that, but and I'll get it. I just got to figure it out.
No, what one day when you wake up, you're just like, oh, let's try that. And you try that and it get worse.
Exactly, exactly. It's just like when with the kids punching the trigger, like I I remember one time this kid was punching his trigger, and I felt like I literally wanted to bash my head against the wall because it was so frustrating. Um, and and I was thinking about it, thinking about it, thinking about it, and then I was like, you know what? Let's break it up. Let's break it up even more than touch your trigger, slowly squeeze. Let's break it up into multiple steps of for a few weeks, you're just going to focus on touching that trigger. Once you get that down and you're doing it without me reminding you, then we'll start slowly squeezing. Then after that, then we'll okay, now you're going to start pulling through the back. And that one kid, his scores at first it was it was pretty much the same scores, but by the end of it, his scores went up like 50 points. So it was a and that's how I work with people that punch the triggers now.
Yeah,
Just
and
break it
and
up
that's
even more.
something, you know, I've worked with a lot of people, and every time I talk to a coach, the way they're doing it is like, "Ooh, that's an idea. That's an
Yeah,
idea."
I do the same
And
thing.
yeah,
Same
I
thing.
probably give you a couple ideas, and you give me some ideas, and something to think
Gladly.
about, and break it down, and kind of almost like, how would you tell a computer program to do it?
Yes.
You guys
One
like, well,
one
squeeze the trigger. Okay, how? With what? Then you got to go through the whole step by step process, and then you go through everything in detail, and and then you go through that, and that's there's kind of the experiments like, okay, how do you make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? Well, you take the bread, just gonna, well, how do you get bread out of the bag?
Yep.
Oh, you had
Yep.
to open it first. Well, first you had to get the bread, then you had to take twist eye off or whatever they're using, then you had
Mhm.
to take out your two pieces. Breaking it down into multiple steps is really good. And
Yeah.
as you do, that's you kind of break it down a little bit, but yeah, that's sometimes what you got to do.
Yeah. And it was funny because the kid actually asked me why we were doing it this way. I was like, well, think about it like almost like and I was like, I know you hate math, but think about it like long division. If you do the first two parts of the long division and then skip a few parts and then do the middle two and then skip a few parts and then do the last two, are you gonna have the right answer? Of course not. But if you go boom, 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 you'll have the right answer. That's why how we're gonna break it up. Type and he was like, okay, that makes sense. So
It's that explaining why you do it, like we talked about earlier. It's
mhm,
like, I'm going to teach you to do this. I'm going to tell you why.
exactly.
Why am I telling you to do it this way? Because then
Mhm.
you understand the why. If you don't know the why, the how don't matter.
Yeah. When I do a beginner class, I always tell people the first thing As one, you're going to see me do some things that I'm going to ask you guys not to do. And the first thing I'm going to ask you not to do is draw a bow without an arrow. And I'll draw a bow without an arrow. And I'll explain that I've been doing this forever. And so I know what I can and can't do. And and then I explain why we don't dry fire a bow. And I tell them, listen, I'm not telling you this to scare you. I'm telling you this so you know what can happen and why we don't want to do it.
Right.
So same thing. It's I try to be very explanatory about different things and why we're doing it this way and why we're doing it one way and not the other. And so, yeah.
Yeah. I've had people bring in bows that the string is off the cam.
Yeah.
And generally there's two things going to cause a dry fire for one,
Hmm.
and drawing back and having a death grip on the bow and let down, because when you put death grip, it turns the bow. You
Yep.
let down, it
Torquing it.
slides off.
Yep. Torquing the
So
bow.
I'll ask him, did you dry fire it? No, I didn't dry fire it. Okay, I know they did just because of other things that went on.
Hmm.
Um, and then I'll tell them, it's like, okay, if you dry fired it, you could crack the limbs. If you tell me you didn't dry fire it and you did dry fire it and you cracked the limbs, and I don't find it, you could have the bow come apart on you when you shoot,
Yep.
and you could be hurt or even
Things
killed.
things can come flying. Strings can break. Like I accidentally dry fired one of my bows, and the string ripped in half. Came around and hit my finger so hard it broke my finger.
So, yeah.
And I explain that to people, and they're like, every time they're like, "Oh, wow, we didn't know there was that much power in it." Well, yeah, you don't know what you don't know.
Then they normally say, yeah, I dry fired it. Okay, so I'm going to
Mhm.
inspect the limbs, with the alcohol and the cotton swabs.
Yep.
And, if it catches on it, okay, there's a little burr. And, I'm going to inspect the limbs a lot closer. If they say, yeah, I did, it's like, no, I didn't. Okay, well, if you did and it comes
If you say
apart,
so.
yeah. But
I
a lot
believe
of
you.
them, yeah, or a bent axle. If you had anybody come with a bent axle,
Hmm. I've had people
dry
come with
fired,
bent.
wouldn't it?
Oh yeah, I've had people come in with bent axles. I've seen cams bent like a taco. Um, I've seen the side of a channel literally sheared off by the string. Like it, yeah. I've seen some crazy stuff from dry fires.
But when you have an axle bent, just think of what it's going to take to bend that. You have a hardened steel axle. This is
Hmm.
hardened.
Yeah,
And you have a cam that is soft. You have fiberglass limbs. How are you going to bend this hardened steel axle if you don't dry fire it?
yeah.
It's not going to happen. There's not enough shooting that's going to bend an axle,
No,
because you have an arrow in it and all the force is going into there.
yeah,
Um, Yeah, there's just things that you see. It's like, okay, this was dry fired. Yeah, we gotta
yeah,
check it a little bit more, and especially when you're trying to take the axle out and it won't come out because it's
yeah.
bent.
Because it's bent. I'm always impressed when I see the side of the channel like sheared off, and that's from the string. The
Right,
string literally ripped this metal in two pieces. Like that is scary.
right,
Imagine what that would do to your flesh. Not
right.
good, but
But yeah,
very
dry
scary
fires
stuff.
are no good, and some bows will take a dry fire and not hurt the bow.
Hmm.
I'm not saying the strings and the cans, but the bow itself.
Hmm.
Um, I heard a story. I think it was Pete Shepley took one of his bows and at a tournament he dry fired every other shot just to prove how tough his bows was.
Yep. Yeah.
And uh,
Well,
would I
Hoyt,
do
I
that?
think
No.
no way. I mean, Hoyt, don't they shoot dry fire each bow a certain amount of times? Like that's what they used to advertise. At least I don't know if they still do it, but they were advertising that every bow they dry fire a certain amount of times, and just to prove how tough they are.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, more power to you, but I don't want to do it to my
Right.
bow.
Yeah, and I really don't want you doing it to my bow. You can do it, test it. It's like, okay, prove how good they are, but
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah,
what's the long-term effects of dry firing it at once or twice
yeah.
or or 10
Now again,
times or whatever
I
they.
don't remember if it was like every one of the bows, but or what, but I know they would do it to different models and try it.
I know that I was thinking they come out with a carbon fiber one somebody did that you said would take dry fires.
Yeah, that was probably the RX, one of the RX bows, the Hoyt RX's Redworks.
Now, every
I'm
time
not
I've
sure.
seen a Matthews dry fired, it's come apart.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Good
So
bows, they shoot good, just
yeah,
don't dry fire.
they're fast, they're quiet. Yeah, just don't dry fire the thing.
Yeah.
The
Well,
strings don't like it.
no, no, they don't. Especially the faster the bow,
Yeah,
the less those string materials going to like it, and it's going to come apart and be in pieces.
and could put you in pieces.
Right, right. Well, everybody that's listening and watching, remember you can join our Truck 101 Facebook group. We'll take a look at your video. If you upload a video from, take a picture of your phone and upload it, we'll take a look, give you pointers. If you have questions about your bow setup or anything, upload it. We have bow techs and instructors in the group. Some of them been teaching for many years. I've been instructor since '95, taught hundreds of people how to shoot. Jonathan here has been teaching for a while, has probably taught hundreds of students how to shoot.
Yep.
We're glad to help you out. If you want to watch the video, it's in there as well as my YouTube channel, Learn to Fix It Yourself. The audio is wherever you get your podcasts from, as well as audible.com. And we just want to help you out, and we're glad to help you whenever you can. Just get a hold of us. I'll leave some contact information in the description. I'll also leave a link to Silver Birch Archery as well as their Facebook page, so you
And you
can
can
find
leave
them.
the link for my page as well on Instagram.
Yep.
So
Okay. Yeah, I'll leave
mine.
those links in there so that we can you can get a hold of us. I'll leave my links in there so you can get a hold of us. If you have questions, just let us know. If you'd like to be a guest on a podcast, let me know. I'd be glad to talk to you. If you're an archer, that's a requirement. We start talking about archery, and after that, we can go pretty much anywhere we want.
Yep, it's a great time. You should do it. Definitely hit them
Yeah,
up.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it talking to archers all over the world. But yeah, my name is Roy Canterbury. I've been your host today on Arch Talk 101, and Jonathan Bolte has been a special guest today, representing a great archery store, um, Silver Birch Archery. And if you're in Pennsylvania or that New York or New Jersey area, make sure you stop in and see him. I'm sure he'd be glad to talk to you and have a lot of fun. And we'll see you on the next one.